So before I get started, I just got to let you know how much I think of you. I brought my wife to this event. It's her birthday. So I don't know how you guys wine and dine your wives, but I take them to the Building and Construction Trade Conference, okay? But I'm here to talk about some important issues that I know that you know are facing the country. A very divided country, a country that's not seeing shared values, shared ideas, or shared opportunity. There's a lot of talk in Washington, D.C. today about a national emergency. And in my estimation, the national emergency in the United States today is that the American dream for millions of Americans is on life support. They're working hard, they play by the rules, and they just can't seem to make it. And if this was just a little, short-term tick in the economy, I'd say, well, all right, we'll get things fixed. But I can take everybody in this room back to September 19th, 1977, in Youngstown, Ohio, the day we refer to as Black Monday, when my father-in-law worked at Youngstown Sheet and Tube, and because of what happened on that day, he lost his job for 13 months, couldn't find work, had just bought a house, just borrowed money from his parents to pay for it, had 2 little girls, and nowhere to turn. And that led to a 40-year economic collapse in many regions of the United States. I can go back 20 years. I remember my cousin Donnie. He worked at a factory that supplied General Motors. He said, "You're never going to believe what I did today." I said, "What?" He said, "You're never going to believe it." He said, "It's one of my last days at work at Delphi. I had to unbolt the machine from the factory floor, put it in a box, and ship it to China." I can go back 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm getting on a plane to come to Washington, D.C. My daughter calls me. She's crying. I said, "What's the matter, Boo?" She said, "My friend, she's crying. She's been crying all day at school." I said, "Well, what happened?" Her dad works at General Motors. Just lost his job. Getting transferred. Got to leave school. This economy has not worked for working class people for 40 years. And I'm telling you right now that we are getting to the point in the United States where we're falling so far behind that it's going to be hard to leap back ahead. That families are falling so far behind, trying as hard as they can, working their rear ends off, but still can't get ahead. The top 1% control 90% of the wealth in the United States. The bottom 60% haven't seen a raise since 1980. And a recent study came out, said 40 to 50% of the American families cannot withstand a $400 or $500 emergency. This isn't about whether or not we can fix the economy. This is about whether or not leaders in Washington, D.C. give a damn enough to fix the damn thing, okay? We can fix it. We can fix it. People talk about the stock market's as high as it's ever been, the unemployment rate's as low as it's ever been, the GDP. I want to know what the national stress level is. I want to know what the national anxiety level is today in the United States. We're always going to have fears and stress in our lives. It's life. But the stuff we can fix, we're obligated as leaders to fix it. And I believe in today's world, we've got lazy leaders. Lazy. We can put this stuff together. And I'll tell you what, our leaders are intentionally trying to divide us. Intentionally. Throws gas on every issue we have that divides us. And I'll tell you, you know who helps out? You know who loves this? Russia. I don't want to get into a big Russia thing, but I'm going to tell you this. Russia has tens of thousands of people who work for the Russian military, and they go on all of our social media, and they find out some cultural rift in the United States. It could be someone kneeling during an NFL football game. It could be a shooting at a school. It could be a cop and a kid that have an incident in one community. And here comes Russia throwing gas on these issues to divide us. And we jump in our camps. Because our enemies love that we're divided. Because then we can't fix the economy. Then we can't fix healthcare. Then we can't fix education. Then we can't fix the food system in the United States. And who's behind them? Waiting to come in? China. We are not having an appropriate national conversation about what's happening with China. They are cleaning our clocks around the world. And we better pay attention to this. They're building islands in the South China Sea. They've got an infrastructure project that's running a rail line from northeast China to Spain. Oil lines, gas lines, ports. They go into Africa. They're buying long-term contracts for raw materials in Africa. They pay off the leaders. They bring in Chinese workers. And the material and the minerals that they're signing for these long-term contracts will have long-term ramifications for our ability to manufacture things in the United States. And we got leaders in the United States that are trashing former first ladies. Put the phone down. Let's get to work. Let's get to work. We don't need a superstar. We don't need a savior leading the United States. There's no miracle that's going to happen. Each generation of Americans, you and me, at some point in our lives, have to step up. And we got to grind it, just like you do every single day. We got to grind this thing out. You know, I tell the story when we first got married, my wife lived in a place, I lived in a place, and we had to get some neutral territory, so we got a new house and got some kids. She had 2 kids from a previous marriage, and then we had a third kid. We got 2 dogs. And all of a sudden, I was in my living room, family room, and I got the remote control for the first time in months. So what's a guy from outside Youngstown do? He gets the remote control and he flips through. I'm trying to find some sports on TV. Couldn't find any sports, so I found a sports documentary on Jimmy Valvano, the old basketball coach. My man, like I'm half Italian, so he was like my guy growing up. So he starts giving this speech and he says, God must have loved ordinary people, because he made so many of us. But every day, ordinary people do extraordinary things. Every day, in so many different ways, ordinary people do something extraordinary. The agenda we need to put forward in the United States at every level, around health care, around education, around infrastructure, around investments, the underlying value needs to be, how can our governmental policies help ordinary people do something extraordinary? In places like Youngstown, Ohio, or Gary, Indiana, or Biloxi, Mississippi, small little towns where we can rebuild the American dream, where people can have opportunity, the ability to move up the economic ladder by working hard, playing by the rules. A real agenda that helps people that take a shower after work, not just the ones who take a shower before work. That's the agenda we need in the United States. And I propose, and will be proposing, a new, robust industrial policy in the United States, where we are building and innovating and growing and giving opportunity. There's 2 or 3 easy things I think we can do if we come together. One of them is not be so hostile to the free enterprise system. Not be hostile to business. You can be hostile to concentration of wealth. You can be hostile to income inequality. You can be hostile to those things. But if we're going to move forward, we got to sit down with business, with labor, with the educational institutions, and build a bright future. Look at electric vehicles. We have 1 or 2 million electric vehicles today. By 2030, there's going to be 30 million electric vehicles made somewhere. I want those to be made in the United States. I want them manufactured in the United States. I want you guys taking care of the plants that make them. There's going to be batteries that go in the electric vehicles. I want those batteries made in the United States. Right now, we can make that happen. There's going to be charging stations. That's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry to convert over into the charging stations. I want that made in the United States. You know who dominates the electric vehicle market today? China. Dominates 40% of it. Talk about solar and wind that are growing at 25, 30% a year. Who dominates those markets? China does. 5G, 5th generation internet. Who dominates that? China. We got to get our act together. Bella calling me and crying isn't just about the worker and the family today. I started crying on the plane because I'm worried about her future. What are we building for her and Mason and Brady and your kids and your grandkids? We're going in the wrong direction. We got to come together. I played on a lot of sports just like you guys did, a lot of sports teams. We got to respect each other. We got to care about each other. Or this ain't going to work. And like we tell our kids, doesn't mean you're always going to like each other. But you got to respect each other. We can do this. We are America. And I will tell you that every day moving forward in my life, your concerns, your worries are my concerns and my worries. Your hopes, your dreams for you, for your kids, for your grandkids. I'm going to bust my rear end every single day to make sure that your kids and your grandkids will have the opportunity to do something extraordinary. You got that commitment from me. And I will just end with one quick story, because you can't give a good political speech without a story about Muhammad Ali. At least if you're a politician from Youngstown. Ali's walking down the street. I think he was in Kentucky. Some kid walks up to him and says, "Hey, Champ, is that you?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I saw one of your fights." He says, "Oh, yeah." You know, Champ talked with that high-pitched voice. "Oh, yeah?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I saw you, man. You got knocked down in the third round." Something like that, the kid said. And Champ responded, "Wasn't my fight." The kid said, No, it was your fight. I'll never forget. I went to the fight. I was so excited, but, got knocked down. Third round, fourth round, I can't remember. Wasn't my fight. "No, Champ, my dad took me. It was like this father-son thing. It was unbelievable. I was there, Champ said, "Couldn't have been my fight. I've never been knocked down." He said, "I'm either up or I'm getting up." The American worker is either up or it's getting up. The unions in the United States, they're either up or they're getting up. The American economy is never knocked down. We're either up or we're getting up. America is never knocked down. We are either up or we are getting up. Thank you so much.